Our friend Miko here flew all the way from the west coast to visit me and CloudZ, so we wanted to take him to some fun little places. And the first stop on our journey was the largest aquarium in the Western Hemisphere, the Georgia Aquarium in Atlanta. Starting off the day with waking up at 5 AM, we hopped in the car and started our 4-hour drive to Atlanta. At the entrance of the aquarium, we were greeted by this big pinguino. We had also reserved some seats for the dolphin show, but we still had a lot of time to kill. So we started a tour at the Cold Water Quest. We got to see some belugas, small pinguinos, CloudZ, and things that fuel my thalassophobia. After finishing that section, we still had some time before the dolphins, so we went to see what kind of creatures live within our rivers at the Southern Company River Scout. Right off the bat, we got to see piranhas, this fire eel, and a low-quality zoom of a wattle jacana. And finally, it was time for the dolphin show to start. It was an amazing experience, a show that was definitely worth buying tickets for, and something we have no footage of. Yeah, sorry, I forgot if they said filming wasn't allowed or we were just that focused on the presentation, but we don't have a recording of it, so here's some stock footage of it in the back, but it was cool, I swear. Definitely recommend you guys go and see it for yourselves. It was awesome. After the show, we went to see some sharks at the Predators of the Deep exhibit. The attraction was one giant tank that held all of the sharks, and you could walk around the whole thing and see it from any side. We got some really cool close-up shots of the hammerheads, but honestly, we managed to get some cool shots of everything. You would think that this would be the conclusion to this adventure, but no. The finale of our tour would be what is arguably the most famous thing the Georgia Aquarium is known for. The Ocean Voyager exhibit. The largest indoor aquatic habitat in the world. Home to whale sharks and manta rays, the exhibit allows you to sit anywhere in front of the giant glass wall, and it makes for one hell of a viewing experience. Once we were all fished out, we walked right across the street to the world of Coca-Cola. At the beginning of the tour, they took us to a room full of Coca-Cola's historical artifacts. Some were pretty neat, and some were, questionable. And the tour guide had us try to pick out what we thought was the oldest thing there. Afterwards, the tour guide let us loose to walk anywhere in the museum, and we wanted to start with the exhibit called The Vault, where they supposedly held the secret formula to the cola. Skipping a few exhibits later, we went to what used to be a movie theater but now turned into an indoor historic street environment. It was pretty cool to have that old-timey feel and was my second favorite part of the tour. Right before we exited the museum, there was something called the Taste It exhibit. We got to grab a cup and try different flavors of drinks under the Coca-Cola umbrella from around the world. It was fun comparing our thoughts on each drink, and was interesting when me and Mika would try the same drink, and I thought it would taste horrible, but he thought it would taste pretty good. There wasn't a limit to how much we could drink, so we got to go to every station and have a sample of every flavor available. This definitely takes the first place spot of the tour. Now that the longest drive was out of the way, we started the next adventure locally on Savannah, Georgia River Street. A waterfront with a lot of history behind it has now become a hotspot for sightseeing with various bars, shops, restaurants, and monuments. We wanted to make our way from one side to the other and came upon the River Street Sweet Shop. I got myself a couple of their world famous pralines and they were absolutely delicious. The River Street was a fun way to get ourselves moving and pass some time before the next event later that night. If you didn't know, Savannah, Georgia is widely known as one of America's most haunted cities, with numerous locations reported to be bursting with paranormal activity. And they often host various haunted tours. Now, I was never one to believe in the paranormal, but we all agreed that it sounded really fun to try and nab ourselves some proof. We camped out at the Starbucks until it was time to pack our bags and head over to our reservation at the Ghost Hunters Savannah Paranormal Investigation. The beginning of our ghost story takes place in the distillery. Us, along with 7 other guests, walked up the steps inside the old building where the guides would explain to us the history of the area and what kinds of paranormal activity had occurred to other guests over the years. They took us to the 3rd floor and showed us the kinds of equipment we were allowed to use to help us detect and or speak to the spirits. Things like the EMF reader, the spirit box, REM pod, and an Xbox Kinect. Once they were done explaining how everything works, the group was allowed to grab anything from the table and go off to any room in the building. I wanted to try out something called the Estes method. It involved me wearing noise-canceling headphones connected to a spirit box and a blindfold, while CloudZ and Miko would ask the ghosts questions. What's supposed to happen is that I would just be hearing static through the box and announce any word that manages to get through. We tried this out in a child's bedroom and the spirit would say words like "you" and "old." When asking it to try and interact with certain items, it would spout words like "this" or "red." It's kinda hard to hear exactly what it's saying due to all the static, but hearing it say words that relate to the room and what we were asking it was pretty trippy. And this first interaction with the ghost made us pick the spirit box as our mouse-catool of the night. After that, we went room to room trying to get the ghost to say anything through the spirit box. There was this one called the Yellow Room where there was no ghost activity, but the tour guides would say that there's just this eerie feeling where you're being watched. We didn't get much activity being upstairs, so we made our way to the bottom floor to the bathrooms, where there's been reports of a ghost that really dislikes men and would get upset if any male stayed for too long. Miko and I wanted to see this for ourselves. We stood in the bathroom for around 10 minutes with no activity, so we moved on to the living room. Apparently there's a little girl with a pet cat that likes to hang out here, and there have been sightings from past guests of them seeing a small shadow standing in the middle of the room, as well as feeling like their legs were being brushed on by an invisible force. We sat down and tried to get the ghost to speak through a device called the Ovilus. It detects any disturbances in the environment and selects words from a preloaded dictionary. Honestly, this thing didn't really do much of anything for us for like 90% of the tour, and this being one of those times. Going back upstairs, we saw that the rest of the group were all leaving the boiler room. The boiler room was home to the most aggressive spirit in the house, a pilot who supposedly ended up here when his jacket was brought here from another location. We were told that he would swear constantly and would get aggressive to anyone who messed with his jacket. CloudZ refused to go in there, so it was up to me and Miko to see what this guy's deal was. It actually wasn't as bad as we thought. We told him that his jacket was really cool and asked if we were allowed to touch it. The spirit box kept spouting words like thumbs up and you can. I was pretty tempted to just straight up wear the jacket, but I got cold feet because I didn't want to be cursed or something and have this dude follow us back home. In our final 10 minutes before the end of the investigation, we went to the TV room and placed the Ovilus atop the TV in hopes of getting something before we go. Surprisingly, that thing was going off like crazy and was displaying words like shop, street, knife, cut, ship, and march. All of which seemed consistent with the history of the area, in which the River Street's waterfront was crucial for wartime shipbuilding and supply lines. And with that, our ghost hunting came to a close, and it was really cool to experience it for the first time. Did it change our views on ghosts? Maybe. But all in all, the trip was a lot of fun, and maybe next time we could get the whole squad to come down and visit us, so we could drink some more seawater, steal the Krabby Patty formula, and maybe perform an exorcism. Take care, everyone.